Welcome everyone to the Into the Wild League playoff edition. We've got a great match tonight with Navillus and Craig of Canada, the second playoff game in this series. And casting with me tonight is a very special guest and esteemed colleague, Danny Donuts. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks, Blue Train. Nice to be here.
Yeah, appreciate you hopping on last minute too. Unfortunately, Jonah was originally going to cast and something came up, so really appreciate you hopping on the last minute. Just going to do a quick recap of the rules and then hopefully get into game right away, not belaboring the point. So really quickly, into the Wild League, players bring 3 out of 9 classes. In weeks past, those 3 classes wouldn't be able to be used again, so that all 9 classes could be showcased. In this case for playoffs, making it a little bit more lenient, no deck restrictions this week, all classes available to the players. They're bringing it tonight. We have some really cool decks from Craig and Navillus. Kind of a bit of the standard versus the spicy. I think you'd agree with that assessment, Danny.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm really excited to see these decks. Yeah, but for these rules, this is how these guys got here. So they mastered the system beforehand, and now it's just no holds barred. We're ready to go into it in the clash of the semifinals.
Correct. So I'm going to go ahead and send them a quick message so we can start game 1, and then we'll review the classes that these gentlemen brought. All right. So while we wait for them to get into game, just a quick review. So Navillus brought Druid, Shaman, and Warlock, 3 of the top decks in the meta right now, a Reno Warlock, a Jade Druid, and an even Shaman. Craig brought a Druid, a Naga Giants Druid, an OTK Paladin, and my personal favorite, a Reno Shutterwalk Shaman. So, the standard versus the spicy. But Danny, you had some interesting thoughts earlier before we went on stream, kind of outlining that maybe this might not be as one-sided as one might suspect.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were looking at this Naga Giants list, and essentially it punishes any deck that are really trying to capitalize on like the current combo druids, right? Where something's playing Dirty Rat, well, all of a sudden you have a 8/8 giant get pulled out. So it should be good. I'm excited.
As am I. So it looks like Craig of Canada has opted to start with that Giants Druid, and Navillus has opted for the solid even Shaman list. And both players getting pretty good cards in their opening hands. Wild Growth for the Druid, Totem Golem and Flame Tongue for the even Shaman. Pretty
So
good
one of the
looking stuff.
intricacies that in Craig's deck is that he is running Psych Melon, but he's also running King Togwaggle and Azalina. So it also acts as a Togwaggle deck, but on what is it, 7 mana? Naga is also costing 7, so it's a little bit inconsistent on that front. But you have 2 different combos you're trying to pull off.
Yeah, and Craig's really baiting, so he's going to play that melon to bait out those rats, and then those rats could easily hit those giants. Like that's pretty devious on his part, and a pretty good understanding of the meta to really go for it in that with that line of play.
But not in this matchup. Even Shaman is definitely going to be able to put on some early pressure here with a Totem Golem and the 2 Sea Giants in the hand. Craig isn't the only one bringing Giants in this matchup.
So pretty rockin' start for Navillus, getting those 2 totem golems. One of the most overstated minions in the game. Already putting some pressure on Craig with his fairly explosive start.
Yeah, well, Craig's hand is fairly dead right now. If he wants to, he could coin Biology Project into a Plague, but then that sets up Navillus the ability to play his Giants.
And it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. Navillus not sparing the emotes either. Letting Craig know that it's an incredible play. So first we're going to see that devolve, and I mean if he devolves, I don't believe he'll have enough mana for a giant. So I think in this case, Danny, you'd want to probably get that giant on the board. But
Yeah, I think you get the giant on the board, and then at that point, Craig goes in and doesn't think he has the devolve.
yep, and there it is. So this is a tough position. You know, Druid oftentimes doesn't have a lot of ways of dealing with these wide boards. There's of course poison seeds, but we don't see that in Craig's hand. He can opt to just get Malfurion online. He'll probably have to go for scarabs instead of spiders, which always feels bad. You know, or he can opt to huck out the Doomsayer to kind of block 7 damage, but that doesn't really feel like it's gonna, you know, further his game plan. I think his best choice is
Is he playing
Malfurion.
poison seeds? If he's playing poison seeds, you can probably go with taunt because you can just stall until you get the poison seeds for clear.
I believe
It does not look like he's running poison seeds, so
Oh no.
the poisonous ones are the better option in that case.
Right, right.
And the second giant in Navilus's hand, so much pressure.
Yeah, and if he doesn't want to deal with those spiders, he can always just play that devolve, and it looks like he's hovering over it.
Ooh, he gets a taunt.
Man, even Shaman just showing why it's a top deck in the format, just the amount of pressure it could put to bear here is just unbelievable.
Oh, we're going back and forth with the emotes. There is no emote cooldown timer in friendly matches, so they're going to be spamming away.
It looks like this is the start of many emotes. Craig does enjoy a good emote. I have it on authority, so I don't think he'll get tilted by it. He'll probably just give it back as good as he gets it.
And Craig is currently staring down his demise, 26 damage on board. There's no way you can go and clear this.
No, I think that I think this is game here. I suppose anything could happen, but I'm failing to see a line of play that'll allow Craig to come back. And there's the concede. All right, so that starts off game one. You know, Even Shaman taking it, showing us why Even Shaman is the powerhouse that it is on ladder. But you know, I think that Craig has a lot of opportunities with that deck to queue it again, and I think that he'll. If I had to predict, I'd say he probably would queue it again because the other matchups I think would line up well with it. And he didn't reveal some of the tech that he had. So I don't know. What do you think, Danny? You think he's gonna opt for another deck?
If there's any upside to getting completely steamrolled, he didn't show off what deck he was playing. Right? He like all Druid is so consistent up until that turn 8 or 9 that Navillus could still think that he is any combo deck, maybe even Jade Druid. So I'll be interested to see. There was barely any information given away through that.
And I believe that Navillus will opt to bring his Jade Druid because Jade Druid is a reasonable deck choice against other Druids. It can out armor the Starliner variant, and with the Jade Idols and Poison Seeds, it can come back against a Togwaggle. So if I had to predict, I think we're going to see the Druid Mirror. I'm going to go ahead and signal them to start game number 2, and we'll see if my predictions are correct. First,
yeah, the Druid Mirror should be interesting because one of the issues that you run into a lot in the Jade Druid versus Togwaggle is that the Togwaggle deck becomes the aggressor at one point because the Jade Druid initially gets bigger Jades. So with the ability to put Giants out as well and put on early pressure, I think that the Togwaggle Giants deck might have a little bit more of a shot than you'd think.
Yeah, certainly the Giants is the X factor here, and throws conventional wisdom out the window. Um, Now, first,
One of the big things too is you can just play some of the, you don't have to necessarily combo off with the Giants. You can get a Mountain Giant if you play UI, and then you can also, your opponent's going to have a large hand as well. So the Clockwork Giants will cost cheap as well.
now for astute viewers who've been watching me cast these games, my predictions are right about 3% of the time. So if you're shorting, you probably would want to assume that there won't be a Druid mirror. But I think this might be one of those instances where I get it just right. I think that Navillus is probably going to assume that Craig brought more standardish type decks, especially with what he's seen so far. I think that the Jade Druid is probably the most consistent and safest bet. So I did message. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I just messaged them on the client as well.
Very good.
There we are.
And there you have it. Prediction incorrect. So looks like we're going to see Navilus's Reno Warlock against Craig's interesting hybrid giant Togwaggle Druid.
Ooh, this is interesting. Having Togwaggle and Azalina in your starting hand. I don't know. I think that you might, because Psych Melon doesn't necessarily draw Azalina, you might consider keeping Azalina in your opening hand, just so that you can guarantee that you switch decks as soon as you play your Psych Melon.
It's tough. I mean, you can afford to take a slower line against just about any Warlock unless it's Zoo. Most people aren't playing Zoo, so I think that you can keep some of the greedier cards. Wow, and looks like everything's going to get tossed with the Biology Project. Are we going to see a turn 1 Biology Project?
I hope not. I think that's the biggest misplay I've seen this expansion, turn 1 Biology Project.
Yeah. I mean, you're basically just, your opponent has the first crack at 3 mana crystals on turn 1. If they're on the coin, up to 4. I mean, you can break your back against that. So it looks like Craig's opted to hold on to that. It's just odd that he opted to hold it in none of his other cards. I guess he's just hoping to collect other ramp cards and just ramp up to 10 as quickly as possible.
Well, he does have the Nourish and the UI, so he's good on that path.
And he's got the Naga as well, so, another reasonable starting hand, and without that explosive opening on Navilus's part, probably we're going to get to see the Druid's game plan develop.
We have an early Kazakis. I believe that Navillus needs to start putting on pressure here, and while he might try to bluff that he has a demon in his hand by playing his Void Caller coming up on this next turn, Kazakis is also a very powerful card to start generating some pressure, maybe draw some cards with a 5-mana Kazakis potion.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes you want to save Kazakis in greedier matchups to pair with Bran, but I think regardless of what Druid you're facing, you'd want to probably get it out sooner rather than later. It's worth noting as well that Navillus is not running Dirty Rat in this Reno Warlock, which is a fair deviation from the types of lists we see. So if Craig is rubbing his hands together, thinking he's going to get a giant ratted out, he's unfortunately going to not get to live that dream.
Yeah. Well, his hand doesn't line up with that at the moment.
That is
true. He has
true.
the Naga, and then he has the Doomsayer. Although having a Naga that comes out, that could be pretty good. Get an Ultimate Infestation for 5.
Yeah. 5-mana Ultimate Infestation is the only thing more broken than a 10-mana Ultimate Infestation. So Navillus has got a couple choices right now, and he's probably debating between that Void Collar and the Kazakis. But if he plays the Kazakis, just checking, doing a quick count on the cards in his hand.
He currently has 9.
Yeah, he wouldn't overdraw, so he could take that line.
It depends on how he wants to play the matchup. If he really wants to go to a control level thing, maybe he tries to burn one of his spells. And he decides to Dark Bomb. maybe he's looking for something. He might tap here.
Okay. And he
I
just
would have
got
liked to see the
Bran.
tap first. I would have liked to see the tap first, but all is good.
Yeah, well, us lower ranked warlock players, tap last is our battle cry. Um, so there's the oh, that was the nourish. Sorry. I keep staring at the melon, thinking that the melon got played, but that would probably be a terrible choice on his part. Um, I think I'm getting more tilted by Navilus's emotes than Craig because it's making me miscast the match. But this is why, friends, I always squelch when the match starts if I'm playing seriously because
Oh no, you totally have to keep the emotes on though. You'll occasionally get the spammer, sure, and then once they start spamming, you squelch. But you totally get a bunch of information when the guy starts emoting.
I never thought of it that way. That's a pretty interesting take and probably a wise one.
Yeah, which is sometimes while randomly emote different things that aren't related to the game, and then I'm like, oh, my opponent thinks I have something. Bluffing with emotes is next level.
So Craig just opted to toss out the giant, and now he's playing the Psych Melon. Pretty explosive turn. Get an 8/8, draw 4 critical cards to execute your game plan. I mean, it's what, turn 6? Not bad.
Yeah, right. Navillus has what, 2 turns now? He's on. Well, he thinks he's on 3 turns, but the biology project will put him on Craig on 2 turns before he can swap decks and take Navilus's hand. So that's what you want to do, that as early as possible against a control warlock,
Yeah.
because then potentially you can seal their late win game, their end game cards. Um, but yeah, Craig should have the ability to do that next turn.
And if he swaps decks before that Kazakus comes out, Navillus probably won't be able to play that Kazakus or get anything off
Or
of
he,
it.
you know what, he could go in and play his Naga Sea Witch and do it um, without using the biology project. So in other situations, I never thought of that, but your Naga Sea Witch coming out on 8 can give you the combo the turn after.
Interesting. Yeah, the Naga has more interactions than just dumping out a bunch of giants, and that's why this deck's pretty cool because it actually opens up those possibilities. And I'm not sure we'll get to see them, but it's a line of play worth keeping in the back of your mind. So Craig's going to go face, taking Navillus down to 22, and probably just going to ping him for another one by the looks of it. I'm going to pass, keeping a hand of 9 cards.
That's 16 on board.
Yeah, it's
You
no
know, Ultimate Infestation is lethal.
it's no joke. A lot of powerful cards in Navilus's hand, but a little awkward. And there's the Leroy Jenkins that just got picked up. So maybe this is a Reno variant that's running the old-fashioned Leroy Faceless Manipulator combo. I didn't get a good look at Navilus's Reno lock list because there were a couple of elite substitutions. So if he's running that Reno combo, not Reno combo, the Leroy combo, that's pretty cool and a nice callback to strategies of yesteryear.
Yeah. One of the issues that's come up recently is cheap taunt minions. And Leroy is essentially, I mean, if you ever have like a Void Lord come up, played against you, your Leroy will most likely never hit face, unfortunately. So these matchups have gotten a little bit more grindy, but in a tournament setting, Navillus definitely has the ability to predict he knows what his opponent's classes are, and then say, all right, then Leroy is going to be a good option.
All right, so we got one giant down. So lethal has been taken off the table, but there are a lot of threats. We could see the Aviana. I'm just looking if there's a way to get that extra mana crystal so you can combo off. Yeah, you could
Yeah,
just start with
he has the biology project. Yep.
yeah.
But so this presents a really big board. One of the things that's interesting about playing giants in this deck is that if Craig is to swap decks, all of a sudden your opponent has a bunch of giants.
Mm.
Now they're going to be full costed giants, but still the discounts with the amount of minions on board and other interactions with your opponent's hand might actually be able to. It's going to lead to some irregular shenanigans. How about we call it that?
Yeah, it makes you think twice before just kind of jumping in there and swapping decks. I find oftentimes some Togwago players, maybe ones of less experience, tend to be a bit hasty in swapping decks, and you can oftentimes still sneak wins out. So being a little bit more
Oh, Craig gets the
conservative.
low fib.
Oh, that was a nice pickup.
All right, this should seal it out if he gets it out in time. The rope's coming to the end. Did he get it off?
It looks like he did.
Oh, okay. Whew. For a second, I thought he didn't get the Azalina.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a delay there. Took a little time to get there, but that was one heck of a swing turn. So the question is, well, I was going to say, is there an answer? And unfortunately, there is not.
Was there a clear with Godfrey there? There could have been a Godfrey, and then if you get a 2-mana minion, there could have been a clear, or 2 health minion rather.
I'm not sure that that there was a 2 health minion on board or in hand. It was a little tricky to see
Yeah,
Navilus's
he's
hand.
on
I
the
don't think he
top.
had one though. And that's why we need a tournament mode, so we can see the opposing player's hand just a little bit better rather than having to like use Twitch trickery to invert it and flip it and zoom in and see it all pixelated. So that'll take it to a 1-1 tie. So that was really awesome that Craig was able to get the win with that interesting deck and executing both parts of the game plan as well, the Giants and the Togwaggle. So now that we're 1-1 apiece, what do you think these guys are going to queue up next?
I really want to see Craig's Paladin list. I think that could have some potential against the Warlock. That would be a really fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, those OTK Paladins are really cool, and the
I
even
don't even think this is an OTK list. I think it's just pure control. I
it's
don't I
just
don't know if he has anything that in there to like make extra hero powers.
Oh, I just assumed. I didn't get a good look at it. I just saw Uther and I
Let
just
me
assumed it
check.
was OTK, but you know what? You might be right. I'm just pulling it up right now.
Yeah, if you look at that 3-mana spot, that's typically where you'll see either the Beardo or the Blackwalled Pixie. Neither of them are there, so this looks like it's a control paladin, just pure and simple.
That's really cool.
Plus,
So your wish is his command. He queued into it, so we're gonna get to see it in action.
this is going to be interesting, though, because it is a Jade Druid matchup. I don't believe that Craig has brought Skulking Geist as a tech card, so these Jades, if Navillus can get to the end game, are going to get very, very big.
And this Jade Druid list is a bit more of the anti-control variant. We saw the Phlebidinous Floop that got mulligans. So there are no Oaken summons. Aya with Phlebidinous could be up to 4 more Jades on the Jade count. So, trading off the Oaken is kind of hard against aggro, but if you don't need it, then, this could be pretty strong as well.
We got some heavy mana ramp from Navillus. double double wild growth rather.
Yep, that makes him a good druid player, I'm told. So what do you think of this line of play? I've seen lots of controversy surrounding it. So on decks that run 2 Jade Idols, do you just play the Jade Idol right away to start ticking up your Jade count, hoping that if they're running Geist, maybe you can get enough Jades before it becomes a problem? Or do you save it and try to leverage it later on with Fandral or some other value play?
I think for the first one, you definitely want to, if you're running 2, that is, you want to be making Jade as soon as possible so that when you play your Jade Behemoth or your Aya, then the other Jades that get played will be able to start contesting with the board that your opponent's initially developing.
Yeah, and that's
Because
exactly what
as soon
Navillus
as
did.
you win the board as a Jade Druid, you're in a very good spot. So that's one of the things that you want to be doing throughout the match. As soon as you get board control, you're just going to keep pumping out bigger and bigger minions. Your opponent has to be killing you, and if you can just seal the board out, that's what's the most important thing.
We're going to see Craig trade into the Aya, so the Jade count's up to 3 now. You know, even though this is a control paladin, Craig's been doing a good job contesting the board, and wow, a bit of a YOLO rat. Didn't get
I mean,
anything off of it, but
there's not much that he could have pulled though, right? He could have pulled a Floop. He could have pulled a Jade Behemoth. I think that the big thing about Jade Druid is it's a very spell heavy deck, so it's often not going to hit something, and if it hits something, it's not going to be super impactful. It's not going to be like you're pulling out a Deathwing or a Baku.
right. I guess, and if you pull out a Floop or a Behemoth, then that's just one more Jade count or one extra Jade that doesn't get ticked up. So
Yeah, but then your opponent does get to the the endless Jade cycle at the end. So Craig needs to become the aggressor here.
yeah, and you know, looking at his hand, mostly defensive tools. So beyond the Sylvanas, it's going to be tough for him to really start ratcheting up the pressure. Navillus has defensive tools of his own: poison seeds, spreading plague, the branching paths, the spellstone, the swipe. So this is going to be a tough game for Craig unless unless the momentum starts to shift his way in the next few draws.
Yeah, and as Jade Druid, having the ability to go poison seeds and spreading plague and just completely flip the board state, that is something that is incredibly powerful.
Mm.
But Craig does have some tricks up his sleeve as well. He is running an Azoth, which can bring back a bunch of really impactful death rattles. Playing a Tyrion, we saw that earlier in the opening mulligan.
Yeah, along with that Sylvanas, that's going to be a pretty tough turn to deal with, and if you could snag a couple of those Jades with Sylvanas, could certainly turn the tables.
Ooh,
Oh,
there's an
interesting.
Azalina.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
Well, I think you don't want to play Azalina just yet, but I mean, it's
I think you
tough.
want to, after an Ultimate Infestation, is probably a good time to play the Azalina, because your opponent's going to have drawn into a bunch of cards, and hopefully some of them are Jade Idols and other Jade creating cards, so that you can start contesting a little bit. I know that he's behind 5 points on the Jade count right now, and he doesn't even have a Jade Idol in his hand. But if he does get that and he's able to cycle a little bit faster, there's potential to not just die completely at the end.
All right, we see the Jade Behemoth with 5/5 Golem accompanying it. Going to see Navillus face tank the Belcher, trying to just deal with the board in any way he can. It's interesting, he didn't opt to play the Spellstone. I guess maybe Navillus doesn't care if he ends up UIing next turn if he overdraws. I suppose it's not the end of the world.
I mean, there is one overdraw that is game losing, which is the Jade Idol. So
That's true.
I would be incredibly cautious about UIing on a hand unless I have that Jade Idol.
And you know, Craig's throwing out the Peacekeeper. I think he's getting ready for an Azalina. But
Yeah,
you
he's
know,
getting rid of all the cards that all the things that he can potentially get value out of before he can gain more value with Azalina.
all right, we're gonna see Malfurion hit the board. And the question is, will the Spellstone get played as well so that we can safely see that UI next turn?
If I'm Navillus, I definitely want to consider that because it doesn't seem like Craig has anything that he can develop.
Nope. He took spiders, though. I always like seeing spiders. But Consecration is going to make quick work of those spiders. And the Deathlord is also a great choice, much like the Dirty Rat. Anything it pulls out of the deck, probably better off not seeing the battle cry, just like with the Dirty Rat. So Craig's doing a good job of keeping the pressure up. I mean, usually Druids have all kinds of armor, and he's the one sitting with armor, and Navillus is at 23 health, and because he opted not to empty out his hand, you just cannot play that UI without potentially overdrawing that Jade Idol.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that he had to use that Consecrate there because of Spreading Plague, because he does have 4 minions on the board, and a quality Consecrate is a good way to, because your opponent's you're gonna have a large board when your opponent's spreading plagues against you, and just like in Shaman when they have devolved, if you can get rid of that Spreading Plague, then all of a sudden in a lot of situations you're pushing for lethal damage.
Yeah, and the Pyromancer and Quality will also take out all of Craig's minions as well, so kind of empties the board but doesn't allow for that tempo swing. All right, there's the Spellstone. We're going to see Spellstone number 2.
Decides to keep slow rolling. Hit him with the face.
Okay, well, there's a Dirty Rat.
So what does this N'Zoth bring back? It brings back the Sylvanas, the Belcher, the Death Lord, and 2 plated beetles. So
Yeah.
he can, what is that? So that's 5 spots.
He's just going for it, and I think we're going to see Spreading Plague, Poison Seed Spreading Plague, if I had to hazard a guess.
Yeah, this is where you'd really want to have the top deck Consecration, where you can just start whacking your opponent with that Equality Consec.
Oof. That's a heck of a Spreading Plague.
One of the strongest cards in the format, and this board clear is why. Like in standard, Spreading Plague is a very, very strong card, but the ability to just take any board and then just completely destroy it,
Yeah.
like it's crazy.
Yeah, Spreading Plague, it's been out for over a year now, and is still one of the most impactful cards that's been released. I mean, it's just backbreaking.
Yeah, this is a fairly resilient board here with the Dirty Rat and the piloted Shredder, or the mini bot and the Pyromancer.
So Navillus can finally safely UI, and Craig emptied out his hands, so this Azalina is going to be value town.
Yeah, this is the one you want.
This is.
The one question here is: does Navillus draw the idol?
He does not.
He does not draw the idol. That is unfortunate for Craig, but maybe he's going to be able to put up some pressure with the Sunkeeper.
Yeah.
In this matchup, typically Sunkeeper can be a value generator, or like to make all your smaller minions into bigger ones, or like a control tool. But from this perspective, Craig needs to use it as something to generate some offense. And the emote wars have begun again.
Yeah, well, I mean, Navillus is probably regretting not playing the ultimate sooner, but not getting that idol kind of hurt. I mean, this hand, for all of the great cards in it, are kind of middling right now. I mean, they're good cards, but what are they going to do to help Craig win the game is kind of the big question. Knowing that there's another poison seeds as well is good info. It means that Craig will probably be a little bit more conservative with his resources.
Yeah, Asalina definitely brings an interesting perspective into the game where now you have open information. Both players know what the first 8 or 9 cards in each player's hand are.
Yeah. Rat for rat.
It's 1 for 1.
I mean, he could have gotten the Stonehill, but snap pick Tyrion.
Yeah. Well, we could also the Floop is a dirty rat at the moment, so I don't know what how Navillus feels his chances are about that pick, but due to the quickness, I don't think he's going to play the dirty rat.
Or maybe Navillus is thinking that Craig snap picked it as a bluff. So, I mean, it's tough to say. It's usually best not to start double guessing your reads because you'll tend to start overthinking things. So, I don't think we'll see the Floop as a rat. Besides, you want Floop to generate a Jade. Does he have any Jade
Yeah,
generating minions left? I think we saw 2 behemoths already in Dia.
we saw
So
2 behemoths, we saw 2 Ayas. I think that I would need to look at his list, but I don't think that there are any left. I think
no.
that the only thing left is the idol, which just gets drawn.
So this is the part of the game where we go into the infinite idle cycle mode, and this is kind of where Navillus has the opportunity to seize back momentum.
Sure, it does take a while to get that train started, though, and
Yep.
one of the things that may be overlooked right now is branching paths can be used for attack as a pseudo savage roar.
Hmm.
So that's one of the things that you want to be concerned about, and I'm not sure if Navillus is going to necessarily think of that because that's like a secondary utility of the card. It's not really what you put it in your deck for as Jade Druid, although you can sneak out some wins with that. But Craig is in a position here that if Navillus doesn't defend his board with like a spreading plague with a spreading plague or a poison seeds or something, he's going to be facing down a lot of damage next turn.
So that's interesting. Navillus opted to shuffle that Jade Idol. I just checked. He is running Fandral. Should he have waited? I don't know what line is correct.
So there was 1 card left in his deck, right?
Yeah. Oh.
He would have drawn the Fandral next turn.
Yeah.
That definitely is considerable. And you definitely want to play the Nourish while you have Fandral too, so that's another questionable play. So this is what, 18 plus 14 plus another 4.
I think he paths right
It's,
now. I mean, you're never
I
gonna
don't
get
think
it.
I think that's I think you have to do it, but I don't believe it's lethal.
No.
I believe that puts him, what is it? I already forgotten.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
so
going
Craig's.
for it. And the true silver.
I don't feel like counting right now, so let's see how much. No, use them. Use the weapon.
So aside from preserving
Oh
the
well,
mid,
we got it.
he got it. Wow. Unbelievable.
Wow. Okay.
I'm sure chat spotted that lethal hours ago, but well played. You know that was a tough match for Craig, and he played to his outs. You know he pulled off the Azalina at the right time and managed
Yeah.
to get all kinds of tools and seized the moment. I have to say that I try not to be biased and root for players. Craig is from Canada, so I have a natural affinity there. But it's always nice to root for the underdog, and I think in that match, Craig was the underdog, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, you got to root for someone who plays Azalina and plays a slightly off meta deck.
Against the much derided and hated Jade Druid. Although it's funny, when Jade Druid was at its peak power last summer 2017, would you think that there would be 2 more druid decks that would be even more oppressive. You know, Ultimate Infestation, when it came out, I remember people saying, how could they print a card that would be more powerful and oppressive? And
And
Blizzard
they
said,
did it
hold my
one
beer.
level again.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did it. Hey, I'll one up you on that one. It scares me to think what they're gonna do next summer.
Hold my melon. Yeah. All right. So let's give the signal and get the next game going.
Craig up 2-1.
Yeah. So that means Craig is going to be bringing his Shutterwalk Reno Shaman.
Oh man, I'm excited to see this played, but I question the consistency of how it's gonna play out. So we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, I had a friendly game against Nate a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, where I was playing a Reno variant of Shaman, and I came to the conclusion that the regular Shutterwalk non-Reno version is a little bit more consistent. The Shutterwalk whiffs a lot in the Reno version, although with the version that Craig is playing, it's more of a value version, so it's running N'Zoth and White Eyes and a few Death Rattles, so it's not really about going infinite and locking out the game. It's almost more of like a big swing turn or a second N'Zoth. So it'll be interesting to see this in action. I'm quite excited to see it as a self-professed shaman fan. So I gave the signal, so they're probably just Navillus is probably figuring out what his best choice is to queue. He can opt for the Jade Druid again, or his Warlock, which I believe is also available to him as well.
Yep. And I'm not sure if he has the read on Craig that Craig's not bringing even shaman, but that could definitely influence his decision here. I believe that Warlock is typically more favored against even shaman than the Druid is, so that may influence his decision going in.
All right, well, here we are. So we're going to see Reno Shutterwalk Shaman versus Jade Druid. And does this Shaman run a Geist? I'm checking.
Um, that would have been some crazy foresight.
It is.
Oh, no way. Hey, so
I
this
th-
should definitely be interesting.
I think this might be the Reno Shutterwalk Shaman that was featured on the episode with Taylor Eve. And because I remember that deck list running White Eyes and N'Zoth, and that was pretty cool. So I'm not sure if it's the same deck, same list card for card.
So one of the things that Navillus right now, he doesn't know that there's a Geist in the deck. So he's gonna use the typical pattern of playing his Jade, his first Jade Idol. It comes out on the board, but the second one is going to be shuffled unless Craig hints at some way that he has the Geist. So that can really punish Navillus because at some point you have to be like, okay, I need to play this as a Jade because you don't get any value out of it afterwards.
Pretty good opening hand for Craig as well, getting the Chain Gang, the White Eyes, the Hex. Pretty good stuff. Hagatha is also nice to see, an extra value generator. I'm a big fan of Hagatha the Witch. Shaman often lacks good, solid card draw, so getting all those random cards could certainly help out if you're being overwhelmed.
Yep. The Death Lord hints at Craig being a Reno deck because you're not going to be running Death Lords typically in any normal Shutterwalk Shaman list. So maybe that'll help Navillus piece together that there could be a Skulking Geist, but
Do the big shamans or the control shamans ever run Deathlord? I guess not. They typically run Rat. All right, well, that probably gives it away that there's
yeah.
some Shutterwalk shenanigans going on here. Or is he the Fandral template out? Interesting. Is that an
Well, the
admission that he
flute.
knows that Geist is?
Well, he doesn't have the other one in his hand at the moment, but one of the things that is active is Floop as Fandral. So let's say we do get the Jade Idol that comes into play, all of a sudden Navillus can use the Fandral for the double attack, the double effect as well.
And Fandral into Nourish is always a very strong play, but I mean, with the board contested such as it is, the Fandral's going to die. It's just a question as to how. Um, there's Devolve, there's Hex, there's Trades. I think you save the Hex, um, but the Trades or the Devolve might be a reasonable line.
Yeah, I don't like losing my board this early, so the Devolve seems like a good option.
All right, well,
It
kind
keeps
of
the board a
a
little bit safer.
bit of a low roll for Craig there, but he's still able to keep up the pressure, like you said. And there's better shield block, also known as Ferocious Howl. Because why not?
It is conditional though.
I
Although as Druid, when do you not have 3 cards in your hand?
If they printed Ferocious Howl before Ultimate Infestation, Psych Melon, and their other insane draw tools, I might have conceded the point, but we'll try to keep the Druid editorializing to a minimum.
Sure.
And there's White Eyes. For all the flack that Mean Streets got, some of my favorite cards in the game are from Mean Streets of Gadstan, and White Eyes being one of them is one of the cooler cards.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I think Meat Streets got just the bad rap because it was really strong. It introduced a lot of new things,
It's
so everyone it was so good that people just got tired of it after a while.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Patches and Small Time Buccaneer, I think that people would look back at the set a little more fondly. Um, but
I don't know. I still look back at that because we don't have that strong of an aggro presence right now.
yeah,
I would prefer to have some things like that. Give me back unnerved Small Time Buck and Patches, please.
yeah, losing the Pirate Warrior doesn't feel as bad as losing the Togwaggle. And I would probably say that's one of the redeeming factors of Starliner being the preeminent druid is that at least the games are over pretty quickly and they don't drag out, so you can kind of move on to your next game. So, maybe that was Blizzard's way of saying, well, we know you guys don't like Togwaggle, so we'll make an even more broken one that feels slightly less bad to lose against. And there we go. I broke the druid editorializing rule, so I lasted all of 3 minutes. Oh, nice pull from the rat, getting the Zola out. That kind of sucks because the Zola generally pairs nicely with the Shutterwalk, obviously, for the battle cry. But because this is a more value-oriented style of deck, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Especially if Craig gets that Geist sooner rather than later. I mean, I think that he'll just be able to outvalue Navillus and be able to take the series.
Yeah.
But that's a
One of
big
the things
if.
I'm definitely concerned about is if that Geist is the last card in Craig's deck. Because if Navillus can start the Jade train and just like keep pushing things out, that could be concerning.
He's going to go ahead and get Hagatha online. I guess, what value is he going to get off the AoE? He only has one minion in his hand, but the hero power over the long term will probably be more useful than the totems would be at this point.
Yeah,
I
and
wonder if...
then you can also, assuming Navillus does trade here, he can tempo Reno at certain points and then get some value from it rather than nothing at all.
So the big question is Navillus going to play his Floop in Dirty Rat form, which would be most unfortunate.
Well, it's better to have that happen now against a Reno than the Shutterwalk itself or an Azoth. So
Yeah,
this is
that's
while
true.
it's a bad target to hit, I think that there are definitely worse threats in the deck.
That is absolutely right. And considering that, Craig's been putting the pressure on this game, don't really need that full heal.
Is he running Healbot? Healbot's typically ran in these lists, and that can work as a pseudo heal at certain points.
Yep, there is a heal bot.
Okay, so he'll be able to get some healing. Oh, there it is.
Nice, nice
he'll,
pull
he'll
off
be able to get
the.
some healing off of that.
Yep, there's also a Sylvanas as well as part of that Death Rattle package, which is pretty neat. And there's the Reincarnate to go with the Sylvanas. Oh, and there's wow, that was a really good hex target. Especially, I know that Craig's probably thinking, "Where's my Geist?" But keeping the Jade count low, just in general, is a solid line of play.
Well, he does have some time because there's no Jade Idol in Navillus' hand, and he's gonna have to shuffle it into his deck. I think it's actually better, right, to have the Jade Idol just get shuffled in, have your opponent waste 1 mana doing nothing, and then just like cycle as hard as they can for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, with Fandral gone, I would say that's probably the best line, unless you're worried about Spellstone or Naturalize, those things. There's the
Oh man.
N'Zoth. I wonder if he holds on to it, hoping to get more value off of it. Although maybe you just play it out now and bait out the
For
seeds.
tempo.
Yeah,
Yeah. There was what? A Death Lord, a
Belcher.
Belcher, and the White Eyes. So he should. Those are 3 fairly good cards.
And even if he seeds, the second White Eyes will go in his deck, and those things are kind of hard to deal with as a druid. A 10/10 is no joke if you don't have hard removal.
Or unless you have a 10/10 Jade Idol. If you have a
Yes,
Jade that is a 10/10, that can contest it.
that is true. And White Eyes is kind of a Jade Golem if you look at the art. So
It's just a more mature Jade Golem.
yeah,
Samurai.
a cooler Samurai version. The only thing wrong with
Yeah,
that White Eyes
one of the
is
things about the seeds into the spreading plague that's happening is that the minions keep getting pulled out of Navilus's deck, and these minions are what generates the jades. So we're gonna have a lot of we're not gonna have that many ways to generate jade idols.
no. No, the deck is naturally countering this strategy. I mean, forget the Geist. Just the ability to prevent the Jades from generating means that even if the deck wasn't running Geist, he'd be forcing Navillus into that late game where he has to do the Jade shuffle, which sounds like a really terrible 70s dance. But with the Shutterwalk and Lotheb, he could fill the board before he could even execute that game plan and just finish him off. So, I mean, Geist is always kind of a good insurance policy, but just by watching the deck play, it almost naturally counters the Jade Druid list.
Wow, he got 3s on every single one.
High rolled.
That is the craziest lightning storm I've ever seen.
What were the odds of that? How many were there? 7. So let's do some quick math here.
That's 7 coin flips. 2 to the power of 7. That's a lot.
Oh, we're less than 1%, that's for sure. It's time to go buy your lottery ticket.
Yeah. So Navillus has gotten his Jade Idol, and he is getting to the end of his deck. So unless Craig gets to the point where he draws the Geist, he could be in a lot of trouble.
Yep. Although he's holding on to 2 reincarnates, and with the Sylvanas, and then the second N'Zoth from the Shutterwalk, he could be stealing a lot of those big Jade Golems as well. Yeah,
Yep,
there's
Navillus down to 5 cards in his deck. Ooh, that Plague is very good right now.
and there's better shield block, getting him 10 armor.
So Craig does have half of his deck left. He has 17 cards left to go through.
Yeah, you know, as much as I love the Shaman class, it struggles to draw cards. Farsight's okay, but pretty low impact. Mana Tide oftentimes is dead before you draw more than one. Ancestral Knowledge, I used to run that and everything because it was 2 for 2, but the overload feels so bad. What card draw
Yeah,
is Craig running in here? Looks like there's a Farsight.
he can always generate card draw with the hero power. And I think that's what he's trying to do by playing this brand.
Yeah, it's just the Farsight. Oh, that's a nice pickup.
Oh, that's a good one. Unstable Evolution is very good.
Too bad the inventor died because as a 5-cost minion, he's a juicy target to evolve. This list also runs Thrall, I believe, the Death Knight Thrall.
No way.
Yeah, it does. Get that
That is amazing.
double evolve value. Yep.
Oh, it does run Thrall. Holy crap. You know, that evolve could be really good when he has a wide board.
Yeah. And there we go, shuffling the idol. This is where we're gonna start doing the oh wow.
Oh, right on time! He got it!
On
That is
cue.
the perfect timing! Oh my goodness! And the emote is super appropriate.
Oh wow. It's exactly like you called it right after the shuffle. Feels
That's the
so
best way to
bad.
do it. Oh my
So
gosh.
we
Navillus
are,
must be...
yeah, with 5 cards in his left in his deck. The Jade counts at 4. Like he's got nothing to generate Jades except for that Behemoth. So the Jade count got to 5 this game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So Navillus' only out now is to somehow stave off and fatigue. But like with 5 cards in his deck, like and no ability to generate more, that seems
Yeah,
implausible.
I think at this point you need to become an aggro deck, and I don't think that that's that possible. You do have the branching paths. I think he has 2 copies of those he hasn't played.
Yep.
So maybe if you can stick a board somehow, then you can just make it really big.
Oh, bit of a maybe. I don't know if that was intentional, but maybe he was trying to double rat to try and get a Shutterwalk. But by playing the rat first, Floop became the rat, so that negated the 5/5 golem that could have been generated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess at this point it doesn't really matter, but oh, there's the concede.
Yep. And that's the ball game.
Yeah, so I mean, let this serve as a let this serve as a I guess a reminder that not always you don't always need a top tier meta deck to bring it. That was a convincing set by Craig, taking it 3-1.
Yeah, very impressive. He really played to his deck's outs too. A lot of the time, with what the Paladin matchup, playing the Azalina, that was very good.
So I'm going to go ahead and message these guys and see if they have a few minutes to chat about their set and some of their choices and some of those key turns, and of course their emoting game plan, which I'd love to hear about. So go ahead and see if we can get them on a call.
Yeah, let's see if we have any proper emote strategy. See if we can learn anything from them.
Well, like I said, I was getting tilted by Navillus' emotes, so it certainly worked on someone, maybe just not the intended target. All right, so they're just typing out. So Navillus' game. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hang up on you, Danny. I'm going to call everyone back from the group chat. So stand by for our post-game interview. Hello.
Howdy ho.
Craig, I see you, but I think you might be on mute.
I was.
Hey, congrats,
Hello,
and we have
hello.
Navillus as well. Excellent. Sorry
Hey
about the
guys.
technical difficulties. Welcome
Oh,
everyone.
did you break your phone after I played Geist?
I was like, I have not seen that card played. I was like, you were. Oh man. I was like, Craig was like next leveling me there. I'm sure. Like,
I'll be honest with you. If if I would have noticed that Geist was in the deck when I submitted it, I probably would have swapped it for something.
I was like, of course. I'm like, I was saving the dirty rat because I was like, he's playing singles. I started like realizing that. I was like, okay, there must be a Reno in here. After Zola, I was like, okay. I got the Reno. I mean, but but I was like, I should have just played it that turn. I was thinking about it, and I probably would have pulled the Geist, and then I would have been happy. But good games, man. Good games. They were fun.
That top deck too. The fact that it came right after you shuffled.
Yeah,
Dude.
we were talking about that on the cast. We were going in saying, when's the optimal time to get this? And it was right at that moment.
It's insane. And the I got a lot of luck that last game. I don't know if you guys caught it, but the lightning strike was
Oh
perfect.
my word!
That's
like,
low. That's lower than 1%.
Is it really?
Calculated it out. Yeah, that was lower than 1%.
dude,
Yeah,
like,
that was one heck of a lightning strike. So go out and buy a Lotto Max or something, because you had a lucky roll there.
Wow. I'm pretty happy right now. Do we know who do we know who else won out of the Joes yet? Like out of our us noobs?
No one else has played, so you are
Okay.
the first to win the match in the Joe's bracket. So congrats. And I was commenting that going in, I think Navillus was more favored just because the power level of his decks were kind of the best of the best, and it was really heartening to see the off meta decks win in such a decisive fashion. Um, I'm curious, so those lists, was that Taylor's Reno Shutter Shaman from the podcast? Like, did you
Yeah,
get,
that's where I get most of my lists. Is I took EK's Nazoth Paladin from Into the Wild episode 41. I took Taylor's Shutterwalk Shaman from I think it was 37 or something like that. And what was the other? Oh, and the Naga deck. That's a Team One trick special that I had to pull out. I'm pretty sure Concerned Mom and EK worked on that one.
Yeah, we were talking about that one. We were saying, hey, if someone thinks that you're a druid deck and all of a sudden you start playing these dirty rats, they get surprised by a bunch of 8/8s.
Yeah, and I was hoping that would happen with his first deck because I never played anything in the first game. Like, yeah, he still didn't know what I was. I didn't get to do anything, and then he never drew Dirty Rat, so I guess it didn't matter. But oh well.
yeah, that even Shaman still blowing it out in a decisive fashion. Um, You had some interesting choices, however, in your decks, Navillus, as well. Even though they were on the more standard side, your Jade Druid didn't run Oaken Summons and was running Floop, which was pretty cool. And you weren't running Dirty Rat in your Warlock. And were you running Demonic Project, or did you opt to
uh,
remove those cards out as well?
no, that's my everything lock list that I kind of threw together. So it had Nazoth, Goldian, and has a Leroy Jenkins combo in it. So there's no room for like the Demonic Project, the Death Lords, Dirty Rats, and I was just like, if I lose to his Druid and it's probably some type of combo, I'm like, I'm not gonna go, just like to target that deck or anything. I was like, I'll take a loss to that, but I figured my J Druid had turned Dirty Rats in two, so if I went against it, I could with the had Floop in there as well, so technically I could work that around and probably get 3 Dirty Rats. So I wasn't too worried in a sense for that, but it's a deck I like. It throws people off because it's the Emperor Thorson, Leroy, Faceless, Power Overwhelming. So those are the cards in there just to kind of like, if I need to finish the game quickly, if there's no taunts in the way and stuff. So that was my list there. The J Druid list, I forgot there was wild Hearthstone player. I can't remember, but he was playing that list, and I kind of liked it. And that was what I was testing out. It was a little different for. It's not a pure. I mean, it's still good, but it's not like a pure meta deck. So I just wanted to bring something a little bit different than the Starliner or Togwaggle, and because last time I beat Craig pretty bad with that deck, and I think most people lose pretty bad to that deck. And nothing against you or anything. It's just like I've lost pretty bad to that deck. So
I know it didn't end. It ended up working in my favor that you brought Jade Druid in the end, but I was really pissed off that you brought Jade Druid because that control paladin, it does pretty good against Togwaggle Druid. It does good against Aggro Druid. It does good against Starliner Druid. He's got the rats, and then you're like, "Oh, I'm playing Jade Druid," and I'm like, "This fucking guy."
But you played to your outs. I was impressed that you managed to keep the pressure up and sneak that game out. So
it was a nasty Azalina turn.
Yeah, well, I played Dirty Rat, and I knew he was playing what's his name, the 6/6 minion.
Tyrion.
Yeah, Tyrion. I played it. As soon as I played it came out, I'm like, why did I do that? That was my mistake, and I was like sitting here like.
Was that the one off of the Stonehill?
It was.
Okay, because I was thinking you probably had that because it was more of a control paladin, and usually control paladins. I was thinking Tyrion, you had it in your list. So.
Oh, I did.
Okay.
He had it, yeah.
Okay, because I was just thinking, and then as soon as I pulled it out, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have.
No, you gave.
Yeah, I should have either Spreading Plague or Branching Paths because I had that, and then Spreading Plague the next turn. I could have stabilized. Maybe, I don't know. Well, I knew most of your hand because it was my hand. But
yeah, I think if you would have Spreading Plague, like Poison Seed Spreading Plague, I could have Spreading Plague back, and I think it would have. I think it still would have been good for me. But Rat wasn't good. Nope.
Yeah. I could have. If you would have done that, then I could have maybe Branching Paths for, kind of like a mini Savage War. I don't know. It didn't turn out that way, but it was a good game.
It was.
Threw me off. I was like, Azalina. I'm like, that changes things.
You won in the season. I won in the playoffs, and we all know that the playoffs is what matters.
Oh man, he's trash talking already. Beating the guy.
Wow.
Speaking of trash talking, tell us a little bit more about your remote game, because there was some definite strategy going in that during the matchup with the cooldown timer turned off.
Oh yeah, I was really mad. Not mad, but really frustrated. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna click emotes until the game ends. And me and Navillus like doing that.
Yes, if you look on Twitter right now, I posted our pregame trash talking. We were just emoting each other in chat, so it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was great.
Yeah, so I thought the games were awesome. I like that we didn't go too meta, except for your dirty even shaman, which I still haven't brought because I refuse to sink to those lows, Navillus, and you deserved it.
Oh, ouch. You still brought Togwaggle plus Azalina. Come on, even though that was still pretty meta right there.
No, it was pretty meta. I told you I brought half a meta.
I told you I brought one meta deck, one half, and one off meta deck, which is a Jade Druid because.
Oh, that Jade. I got so lucky. Like Death Lord into Aya, into Hex, into Perfect Lightning Storm, into Skulking Geist, into Craig. Just a fucking I need to buy a lottery ticket. My fantasy team is probably gonna do great tomorrow. Yeah, it's gonna be a good week for me.
Those were some good draws, man. I was just like, my wife walks by. She's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Well, see, there's this guy named Craig, and he's like the luckiest guy right now." So. Yeah, I'm like, it's all good. It's all good. If I had to lose to someone, I'd rather lose to you than to Nate. So,
yeah, I totally agree. That last game, this is maybe distasteful, but I was taking a poop, and my girlfriend's watching the stream in the living room, and I go, Tiana, they're about to scream and yell in celebration when I played the Skulking Geist, and then you guys did. I could hear it from the bathroom. Oh!
Wow, Skulking, guys. Next time we play against each other, you need to check your decks and take that out for me. And
Yeah, because I remember I submitted it and I was annoyed. And I looked like right before we played, I wanted to queue and take a look at it, and I was like, oh man.
and then you see me play Jay Drew, then you're just like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah. I was so happy.
Also, you start like laughing hysterically, and your girlfriend's like, "What happened?" And you're like, "I accidentally next leveled him."
So it sounds like the king of the match executed his game plan from the throne. So
You lived up to the RNG aspect of it, even with your accidental deck selections, man. So.
Yeah, sorry about that. But I can't wait to watch the VODs, guys. This was a good fun one.
It was. So I don't want to hold you guys off for too long because probably have other things to do. So before we wrap, any shout outs, projects you want to highlight or underscore? Navillus, why don't we start with you?
Oh, sure. Shout out my Team Ringstar. They might be, there's still a team member, Nate, so he has to carry the mantle for our team now. And so shout out to Team Ringstar representing them. And then also you can find me on Twitter at WhatTheDeckHS. And even though I play Hearthstone a little bit more casually now, it's still all wild. So, but I still play a little bit more casually now. But I do have a wild content creation idea that's about to take place, a new one. So stay tuned for that. Just go to at WhatTheDeckHS on Twitter, and that's where you'll find me.
Very cool. Craig?
You can follow me at Craig of Canada on Twitter. That's CRAIG of Canada. If you can't spell Canada, don't bother. We don't want you there. And guys, this week, Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, or 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Mountain Time, or something like that. It is 11 p.m. Eastern. I want you there. Saucy Mailman's stream. Me, Nate, and Saucy Mailman are going to be doing the first ever Into the Wild podcast live from Saucy Mailman's stream. We have a huge announcement. It's a big episode. Please, please, please don't miss it. And it'll still be on the podcast feed like normal, but you guys can come there live, and I strongly recommend it. You're not going to want to miss this one.
So that's Friday the 19th?
Yeah, this Friday night, and it is at 11 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, right? Is that how that works? Let me see here.
3 hours. It's 8 Pacific.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. You were like talking about times, and like everyone was making me second guess my 3 hour difference.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I showed up on time is all, right? That's it. So we got it sorted. No problem. So 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern, October 19th on Saucy Mailman stream. And y'all should probably already follow Saucy Mailman because he has a great stream as well.
Yeah, and check our Twitters because maybe I have the times confused. But I swear to God, you need to be there. If you miss this, you're going to be like, oh, fuck, why did I miss that one? It's an important episode of Into the Wild.
Very good. And Danny, you always got some great things on the go. Anything that you wanted to highlight before we wrap?
Nothing really I'm working on at the moment. We have, you know what? Yes, I do. We have a Tempo Storm meta snapshot coming out next week, so you can check that out. You can follow me with Team One Trick at Team One Trick on Twitter, or my personal Twitter, DannyDonuts_HS.
Right on. Always look forward to those snapshots. So I'll be keeping my eyes peeled, and I'll be clearing my calendar for next Friday so I can see the announcement live. Great. So before we close the stream, anything else?
Blue Train, where can we find you at?
I do have a Twitter. I like to keep my online profile low, so it is set to private. I'm pretty active on most of the Discords for the different communities. Frequently on Raffles Discord, on the Team One Trick Discord, and the Into the Wild Discord. So if you want to reach me, you can follow me there. Otherwise, try to get in at least 1 to 2 casts a week for the Into the Wild League. Other than that, you can always shoot me a friend request, PM me on Discord if you'd like to do that. That's it. I don't have as much exciting things as you guys, but I do appreciate all of the spirit and content that you bring to this small fledgling community. So appreciate it. So with
Navillus, I promise to bring home this whole league for you.
Thank you, man. It's riding on you now. Okay, so don't disappoint me. Blue Train, Danny Donuts. Thank you so much for casting. I look forward to watching the VODs and you laughing at Craig's ridiculous luck. And but no, thanks, guys. Really, thank you.
Yeah, and we do have a match scheduled for tomorrow. It's actually featuring Danny Donuts and Jonah Rot, scheduled at this time for 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern. It might end up getting rescheduled. We'll have to see what happens, but stay tuned. And there's also another playoffs match between Dr. Evil and Nate. I don't see a time scheduled for that yet. So I imagine that'll get posted soon. Either way, stay tuned to the Into the Wild Twitter for updates on when matches will come up, or even better still, follow on Twitch. And that way, when we go live, you'll be notified that it's happening. So with that, congratulations once again, Craig. I look forward to seeing you in the finals, and good games, Navillus, as well. Thank you, Danny, for casting on such short notice. And with that, I will wish you all a good night. Take care, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Adios.